The botched terror attack in Times Square 2 weeks ago reignited the debate over Homeland Security, and now many Republicans are openly criticizing the Obama administration for making policy changes that they say are making the country less safe. Among the most vocal critics is my next guest. Katie McFarland is a former Defense Department official, and she ran for U.S. Senate in 2006. She is joining us tonight in the studio. Katie, thanks very much.
Delighted to be with you, Liz.
So you have been quite outspoken in your criticism of the Obama administration. I mean, I'm just looking at something that you had written recently, and you said, is Times Square just a dry run?
Yeah.
And that's certain to really scare everybody. I mean,
well, I think the problem with it, when the Obama administration came into office, I think they had a certain narrative of what national security, and particularly terrorism, the war on terror, for example, they banished that from the lexicon, and it was called then overseas contingency operations. There were not terrorist acts, they were called man-caused disasters. And their narrative, in part, was to say a lot of this was George Bush's fault. Cowboy diplomacy inflamed the Muslim world, and as a result, they came to get us. Now, what has happened, flash forward in the last year and a half that President Obama's been in office, there have been 4 major terrorist attacks. The Major Hassan, who was the Fort Hood shooter who killed a number of people at the base. There was the Alabama recruiting station, which killed people. The Times Square bomber, which failed mercifully to go off. And the Christmas Day bomber, which again was failed. Now, those all failed, not because we were smart and we had great counterterrorism, but because we got really lucky. Okay, eventually, luck runs out.
But the argument has been, for example, Mayor Bloomberg has made an argument that, well, there are countless things that are actually foiled that we don't talk about, for example.
Yeah.
So there are a lot of things that maybe the administration and or law enforcement is doing right on many. Okay, well, sure, but the previous administration is gone. So now we're talking about this administration.
My objection is when you treat terrorists, who perhaps who are specifically non-American citizens, when you treat them as not as enemy combatants in a war, but as you treat them as criminals who can go through the American justice system, American criminal justice system, and you give them the full rights of citizenship, what is the first thing you have to say to them?
The Miranda rights.
You have the right to a lawyer. You have the right to remain silent. Now,
they're a citizen. The guy from the Times Square bombing is a guy who's living in Connecticut. So you can't just say selectively, well, we'll selectively apply some things because we think you might be a terrorist.
No, what you can do, for example, on the Christmas Day bomber, he got off the plane. He talked for about less than 1 hour, and then he was given Miranda rights, at which point he clammed up. Now, eventually he started talking about a month later. But what happens in the course of that month? Whatever connections he's had, you know, bank accounts, ties to terrorist organizations overseas, intelligence, who helped him, who sewed the underwear with bombs, you know, who did all those things? We don't know. And if we do eventually know, those trails are cold. But here, it's an important distinction to make. If you are looking at terrorists, potential terrorists, accused terrorists, as somebody you want to prosecute, you treat them one way. I would prefer to look at them as somebody who has a lot of intelligence information. I want to know about the next attack. I'm a little bit less concerned about whether they go to the slammer. I want to protect the next attack.
I think most people understand that. But, for example, today you're seeing arrests in connection with the Times Square bombing. So the fact that this guy was treated in a particular way didn't stop law enforcement from following the trail to make arrests.
The guys who pulled him off the plane, the customs officers who pulled him off the plane, and I said, look, the narrative was that that law enforcement had found him and that they were watching him, waiting for him to make one last cell phone.
He was on the watch list too, and
he was on the watch list, but he
got
through. Now, you and I could go on that plane, and we'd have to take our shoes off, and they go through our underwear, everything else. That guy got on the plane, bought the ticket in cash, made the reservation on the way to the airport, had no checked luggage. These all should have been alarm bells. And my point is that if you treat these people not as sources of intelligence, but as somebody you want to prosecute, you treat them differently. And are you missing out on the intelligence? The second thing is we've got to start profiling. Not racial profiling, terrorist profiling. A guy buys a ticket with cash, makes a reservation on the way to the airport, doesn't have any checked luggage. That's a guy that ought to come up on a lot of red flags.
Okay, so that sounds logical, but how concerned, and I know people are concerned in Times Square and also with the reduction in terror funding for New York City right now, and is a big issue, particularly in the city, and people all over the spectrum, political spectrum in New York are alarmed.
Sure.
However, how big of a role is this going to play in the midterm elections when most people are really concerned about the economy and the jobs and their ability to pay their bills?
I mean, from the electoral standpoint, I mean, you know, you're the expert on that. I'm the expert on the national security.
I try.
But I'm just looking at it how to protect my country, okay? And I'm much more concerned not with who wins what election, who spins this as a political issue. I'm concerned about keeping the American people safe. Look, when they come and attack my city, my state, my friends I've lost, children of friends died in the September 11th bomb, I'm just not going to stand by and watch it happen again. And I think that the problem is now, in the intelligence community since September 11th, we have been worried about homegrown terrorists. We have assured ourselves that we're not Britain. Britain has a huge problem with homegrown terrorists. People who immigrate to Great Britain, the second generation, they're the guys who are going to Pakistan, getting the training, coming and blowing up the buses in London, the airport in Glasgow. We've always assured ourselves that, look, by the second generation, Americans, they're worried about getting on the soccer team. They're hanging out at the mall. We're assimilated. We don't have that problem. What the Times Square bomber showed you, what the Fort Hood showed you, is that maybe we do have that problem. And so as a result of that, I think we've got to start doing things that we've not yet done. We've got to forget about the political correctness. We've got to profile for terrorists. We're still Granny going through the airport line, right? She gets patted down just the same as some guy who fits all those other profiles of a potential terrorist.
Arguably, a granny could be a terrorist. Well, there are women who are suicide bombers, but
the point is, if you focus on everything, you focus on nothing. We only have a limited number of resources, as you've seen when they cut back on the camera funding for Times Square, for example. I want to pick my fight, and my fight is to make sure that homegrown terrorists don't have another attack in Times Square, wherever else.
Okay, and your fight is actually quite strong. I mean, you invoke a message that a lot of Republicans are trying to put out there, and you have a platform on Fox, and you have a lot of opportunities to do that. You ran in 2006. You didn't make it through, but are you interested in running again? I mean, certainly the Republicans right now are looking for candidates. They don't have any female candidates that I know of statewide, so how about it?
I don't know, Liz. We have to check your voter registration.
No, I'm blank. You can check. I'm a blank.
Look, I had a big career in Washington. I was in the Nixon, Ford, and Reagan administrations. I was the highest-ranking woman at the Pentagon. And when we won the Cold War, I retired. I mean, I got married. I raised 5 kids. I was living the good life. September 11th happened, and I was back in the fight. My interest is having a platform, like you said, for which I can argue about the issues that I care passionately about. And I think it's nuclear weapons. I think it's America spending so much money that China's owning the mortgage on our house. However I can best do that, I have a terrific platform at Fox. I love the people at Fox. I'm very happy to be there.
So no is what you're saying.
I'm not saying yes, I'm not saying no. I'm just wherever I'm going to be the most effective. Right now, that's at Fox News, and I'm very happy. I'm the national security analyst for Fox News. As you said, I have my own show on Fox's online station. I call it DEFCON 3. And it's been a terrific opportunity.
And we will be watching though, because I didn't hear no personally. So I'm curious.
I don't mean to leave any doors open. I'm not interested in running. I'm very happy where I am.
I'm sure that GOP Chairman Ed Cox, his ears perked up for a minute there, but KT McFarland